Hey y'all, it's Moonlight Cowboy. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. Um, I hear a lot of people over the course of my building time tell me that all of my camps are nice, but they can't do what I do because they don't want to spend the money on the game, or they don't have the money to spend on the game, or they just want to see what you can do without the items. Some of those comments have been very productive, like I just don't have it, and I really want to do this stuff, and or I'm new and I just want to make sure that this is the right move for me before I start investing in this game. And then I've had plenty of others that have been like, "Oh, you can only build because you have atoms. Oh, you suck, Moonlight." And yeah, you might be right. But today I'm going to make an attempt. I'm going to show you the attempt that I did of doing a build with no Atom Shop items or Scoreboard items. So basically, you can do everything you see here with in-game plans. So for starters, I'm going to line up my foundation, and I'm going to go underground. So going underground, basically, for those of you who don't know, all you have to do is put like one of those bass guitars, again, in-game plan, on a set of stairs. And then you can drag it down to another set of, another foundation, right? I can disconnect those stairs. And when I do that, it makes the bass guitar stick out. You kind of got to fiddle with it a little bit, no pun intended there. To make sure that it's going to stick out just enough for you to be able to get underground. The animation of playing it is what brings you underground, right? So here we go. I'm going to go underground. While I'm going underground, I'm getting this started. I just want this to be a quick note. There's no expectations here for you to exactly follow this build. Most of my tutorials, that's not the end game. The goal is for you to get inspiration here on what to do if you're looking to build like this or you're trying to identify a trick. So one thing that I usually tell people too is use roofs when you're building underground, because these floors, they can't be removed when they're attached to stairs. So what I do instead is I'll use roof platforms down here, because then I don't have to attach them in anything, right? So I just disconnected that roof from the wall, and then I can remove those stairs if I want to. And then I can build my own platform down here, no problem. Now I am going to build 2 levels for this for now. I don't think I end up staying with having 2 levels of roofs, but I just wanted the flexibility because of the way I'm going to be doing these floors here, to be able to do really complicated floating merges, which is something you're going to learn how to do today as well. So as you see, I'm just creating one more roof platform here. And yeah, it's pretty easy to do, as you see. And then I created it, I unhooked that roof, and then I can delete the stairs, add more roofs, and then I can add stairs back, depending on what my needs are. Honestly, typically what I do is if I'm doing it this way, I'll just add the platforms, and then I can jump down from the stairs, or jump down, I should say fall down from the stairs, because if I jump, I'm going to go above ground, right? But this is also another one where I've heard people say, "Oh, well, I don't have these roofs to be able to flex them, to get them to go like full angled and stuff, so I can't build underground with roofs." Well, as you see here, I'm not using any of the roofs that are Atom Shop roofs to do this. But yeah, now I've created 2 roof platforms, and I can get underground anytime, and be able to start floating stuff from underground as needed. From here, basically, I'm just getting my foundations in place. One thing that you'll notice too is when you use foundations at certain angles on the terrain, they will pop up. And in some cases, this can be an advantage for you, as we'll see later. But for now, what I'm going to use these for is I'm going to start creating my underpinnings. So again, this is one of those things that's really easy to do with catwalks, but you might not have catwalks. Maybe that's why you're here. So I'm going to show you how to do underpinnings without catwalks. So I have my foundations up there as we saw, and I'm using stairs again to create my floors underground. Now, I already told you that for my platforms underground, I typically don't use floors, but for this technique I will, and I will be removing them. So while I'm placing these floors, I'm going to just tell you real quick that when you turn a wall into a doorway, you can remove that wall, or you can remove the floors from the wall, I should say. So what we're going to do in order to create these underpinnings is we're just going to add a bunch of these little doorways here. And then once I have them all there, we'll see that it's basically going to look like the outline of a camp from above ground. Like you would see like if they were about to pour a foundation for like a new home or a building or something of the like, right? And then once I get around, you can always, as long as you leave your floors here, make sure your walls are faced the correct way, depending on which way you want your underpinnings to go. I wanted them to go that way, so that's the way I went, but I could have went the other way with them. The reason I didn't is because in this build I don't use any wallpapers. I also realized that my ladder's in the way, so I created another ladder over there. And I'm just going to use some floors to get over to that ladder because I can't disconnect these stairs unless these floors have another set of stairs to connect to. So now that's out of the way if I need to work over there, right? And then I can of course make adjustments. Like right now I want to move my build over a little bit, so I'm just going to move those walls. Boop, boop, boop. Instead of doing double work in each wall, I'm just going to go to the last wall and bring it over. And then I can move those walls in as well on that side. And then what you'll be able to do is you'll just be able to snap, depending on the wall type, you'll be able to snap the foundation straight through these walls. Some walls don't let you do that. These red barn walls will allow you to do that. The key to this too is making sure that that foundation that has the stairs on it right now, that's going to be the exact level and placement of your foundations. Notice I was able to snap them through the walls. So what you want to make sure of is you want to keep that foundation somewhere as a keystone. Now another thing I'm going to do with this build is I'm going to offset it. These initial foundations are actually pretty good for using them as measurements if you're doing like half length foundation. So notice I'm kind of grabbing it and I'm dragging it over until I hit that line, because I also want a foundation to be in place that is going to, because I want this build to be a little bit offset. So that's a neat trick you can do too. Do that in FreeCam from straight above, so that way you don't hit any problems with the level of it. So right now I'm going to remove some of the floors here, some of the excess floors, so I don't get confused later. And the key is I can always add them back as long as that foundation, that set of stairs is there, as we will end up doing here in a little bit, because I jumped the gun thinking, oh yeah, I've already done it, I'm great, Moonlight Cowboy. I broke my arm patting myself on the back and realized that I'm going to need to move some walls around. But I did. I was smart enough to know I didn't want to remove that foundation and stairs until I was done. So, but this is just also to show you that you can just remove the floors from those walls, and then now you technically have your underpinnings. So if this is all you get from the video is how to do that, and that's something you were looking to do, great. You can stop watching. I'm just kidding. Please don't. Please. And look, now we have our foundations in place, and we have our offset foundations if we want to use them there. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is one technique you can use to make floors out of something else, right? Because the initial foundation floors, those gray floors, are kind of boring. They are useful in some circumstances, but not for the build we're doing. We want it to be a little bit cleaner. So one thing you can do is you can take a, stack like say a table that looks like it could be a floor, right? Because they're wood. You can stack that and then put that on a camp device and float it up above ground. And it's going to take quite a few clicks to do that, depending on how low your roof platform is down below. But as you see, I can, if I finagle it enough, I can get it into a spot where it will, look like a floor. Now, the pro in this is you have a lot more flexibility where you're, how you want the level of your tables to go, or, whatever you're using for floors. The downside for this is you have to count clicks. Notice I pulled out my my pressure plate because I went like one click too high. And so I have to make those adjustments. And every time you make those adjustments, like and depending on where you put it on your camp device, it could end up like not being the same all the way across. So then you'll see certain floors that are that are the wrong height. So we're going to do something completely different because I want all the tables to be exactly perfect. And I don't want to leave any room for mistakes because even though I feel like I'm pretty good at building, like I'm also human and I will make mistakes. So what I'm going to do is I took a foundation and I lowered it. I made sure it's exactly where the other foundation was over there, but then I lowered it directly down. And I'm making sure that these foundations are the table height to match the underpinnings that I made, right? Like so, a little bit higher. And see, I'm just trying, I'm like fiddling with it until it gets perfect to get that perfect height. Yeah, and that's about right. I could probably go up a little bit more. I want it to kind of sit on top of them. I don't want them to, like, I don't want it to be below the underpinning level. And that looks about what I'm looking for. Looks like about what I'm looking for, I should say. So I'm also just making sure that I have the table aligned perfectly with the structure as well. I'm using this time also to get ideas of how I want it to be, you know, sitting inside. Can I get it to overlap with it? I actually don't really want it to overlap with it because then if it can go over, then it's going to be harder for me to align it later. Anyway, so I use that foundation that I just put the table on, and I'm going underground and adding another floor platform, right? But I'm only going to need one of these because what we're going to do is we're actually going to use this to make a roof platform. So I basically did what I've done before to make my underpinnings, and notice that wall's a lot lower. It's actually the exact height that I want that the foundation to be, and this is what I'm going to set those tables on. The reason I'm using roofs instead of foundations is because I'll be able to destroy the roofs and then the floors will go away, which will make some later merges much more possible. The foundations would then get in the way if I use those, and some of the things that I'm going to attempt to do would actually be a lot trickier. Another thing too, be careful with the table size that you're using. In this example, I used a table, and if you notice, they don't quite reach the underpinnings. That's fine for me because I'm going to eventually center it. Right now I'm just toying with the idea of how I'm going to make this work, but really the process of putting the tables in place just requires a lot of patience. You just want to go and double triple check to make sure there's no gaps between your tables. See that gap right there? Yep, and so I'd want to kind of straighten that out, bring it in, and this part is the tedious part, but the reward for doing this is having some really custom floors. Now, before I get more crazy into doing my floors, the next thing I need to do before I put more roofs down, and then again more tables, aka floors, is I want to use this really cool thing from the Wild West Showdown. This is one of the prettiest camp items they gave us. This is also one of the most awkward items that they gave us because it's not an exact wall height length or height, and so it's a little bit like clunky and cumbersome to use. So what I did is I put down a series of tables here, and I'm going to line this up kind of with the tables. Really, I don't care so much about the tables as I do making sure that these two, the two that I'm using here, because I'm doing like, you know, back to back, I want to make sure that those are lined up perfectly because these will end up being a feature wall in this build. And then once I do that and I make sure they're perfect, so I'm going to double check again. Looks pretty good to me. I can then go and grab the table that these things are going to be on. So it should be anchored to one table. I got lucky and I grabbed that one on the first try. I promise that wasn't rehearsed. I just went for the middle one. Sometimes it'll be like the end one, right? And now I can get rid of those other tables, and now I have these things on a table. What's cool about this is I can now use that one table to float them up. So if you have anything out there that you want to use as a custom wall, whatever it is, you can float it up from underground to get that right height. And the cool thing, what you're going to see in a moment, is once you destroy that table for whatever reason, you know, if you, like, for instance, I need to put roofs in there in order to make my floors. I can destroy this item and it will completely ghost. It'll go away. It'll be intangible and invisible when I destroy that table. The only thing that you will see is the destroyed table when you're in build mode. And what that means is you can build through things that you could otherwise not really build or merge through with no problems, because then it's out of your way. What I'm doing right now is I'm aligning it with this wall. I want to go 3 walls high with this build, so I have more like a cathedral ceiling look inside. So I'm making sure that this thing is going to be the right wall height. That's the other reason I'm doing it off this table too, because this, otherwise it would be like almost 2 full length wall heights, but not quite, because again it's an awkward size. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to make sure that this thing is the exact height of the walls that I want to use. So I want to go 3 walls high. I'm going to make sure it hits 3 walls high, which means some of it will be sank underground, which is perfect because I want to hide some of it for this build. And I can go a little bit higher. And so I'm going to use a combination of the camp device and possibly the pressure plate to make sure that it is the correct height. But I think that's probably a touch too high. So yeah, here comes the pressure plate. Typically speaking, depending on where you put it on your camp device, every click on your camp device up is about 3 clicks down on your pressure plate. But there, that's pretty good. Might be able to go down 1 more, but let's see. We might roll with this. No. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So when I brought this down 1 more, the reason why was because I realized that my roof I don't want it to clip through my roof when it's all said and done. So I'd rather be just a touch smaller than the walls than a touch higher than the walls. Now that I have it at the right height, I just got to get it the right spot. Notice I used the roofs right there, and I got it to line up perfectly with that. So I know it's centered with what I would be doing in my build, which is, if you notice with these foundations, that's where that would end up going, right? Because I'm going to like offset the foundations. Now, what I also realized through this, rather than having it perfectly in the middle, is that I want to use one side as a doorway, because it's great to have the mural, but then I'll have all that unused space on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to line it up to the edge of that foundation, because I know that's where the build is. The build is going to end on that one side, and that leaves me room on the other side for a doorway. Now, just like with the wall and making it sure it was just a slight height lower than the wall, I'm going to make sure that's slightly in from the foundation, because I don't want this mural to clip through the walls when it's all said and done. So again, it takes some tinkering, but look, you see the foundation, it just slightly comes on the other side. So that's going to be perfect for us, because then I'll be able to build walls through. Now, if you notice, I can't snap a foundation through it, right? That's not fun. But I am also looking to make sure I can fit a door there. I'm kind of using it to eye it up. I know that it will work for that door because I'm using that foundation there. So now that we kind of have an idea of where this is going to place at, I'm going to destroy that table. And when I destroy the table, because that's the anchor point for these things, look, it's completely gone. Right? We don't see it, but I know it's there. So all I need to do from here is I'm gonna take my roof. I had placed some tables out to play with them, and took them off of the roof there. I can put those back. Sometimes you have to burn down the tables to get them back in, or burn down the other roofs, but you can just slide those right back into place. See? It's the other neat thing about doing it like this. And then I'm going to snap some foundations through. And I'm just going to put a doorway and a half wall there, just to make sure that I have it perfectly. Because once I put those floors in, there's not really any going back. At least with the mural, I'd have to give up on it, or I'd have to start all over from moving all those floors out of the way again. I don't want to do that. So that looks about right for what I'm looking to do. It looks like the wall merges in there just fine. The foundation is lined up perfectly, and I can get through and make kind of a bedroom in the back. Now, one thing I can do too here is I can use use a doorway and leave it there as like a placeholder for a foundation. But then as I did that, I also forgot, and then I went ahead and removed that wall anyway. So we're going to have some battles to do later on. But for now, what we're going to do is I'm just going to put the rest of the roofs in, so that way I can place my tables as floors. Now, another neat thing about having either floors or foundation that are underground, any items you set on top of it are going to try and set on top of the roofs or foundations and not on top of the ground. So it'll actually sink down in the ground automatically for you. Now, remember, I removed that one foundation over there, that wall that was going to be my placeholder, and notice I removed the other foundation. So guess what I have to do again, right? Awesome. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this real quick, which is, if you didn't catch it from before, I'm basically moving my foundations in such a way that that where they're going to be offset to where this build is going to sit flush in the middle rather than like take up the entire space, because I want a little walkway around the sides. Like I think that's going to add a little character to it. And then once I have that in place, like so, I'm just making sure it lines up. And notice now I'm destroying these floors because I want to try and get my foundations in there because I'm going to use those to make the walls. I realized I couldn't get them because these walls are in the way. Remember what I said before about leaving that set of stairs in place so that way I can get my floors back in if I need to replace my underpinnings? That's why. So look, now I remove those walls, and because I angled all of these tables this way, or I'm sorry, these roofs this way, and they're sitting on these tables, look at this. I'll be able to destroy them. And once I destroy them, I'll have no problem getting my foundations in place because they'll snap through things that are destroyed. So, and by doing this, I'll be able to snap walls to these foundations, like so. See? So this, in doing this, I don't have to free place a bunch of walls, right? I'm basically kind of free placing them using foundations. This works well on the ground. In the sky, I mean, if you're doing sky building, I definitely recommend you have catwalks, obviously. Here if you notice, I'm kind of starting to offset that one foundation a little bit, and here's why. So we don't have access to wallpaper as brand new players, so what I'm doing is I am reverse double walling these walls. And what that means is that it's going to have the same texture on both sides, and I'd rather have that than like a bunch of like either hollow walls that are like just a bunch of boards supporting the outside wall, or like some kind of tattered plaster walls. I want it to look really nice. This is going to be kind of a clean build, and honestly, and this is no knock on those that do scrappy builds, I would say from a new player perspective, doing a clean build like this is probably a lot harder than doing a scrappy build because everything in the beginning kind of looks scrappy anyway. So what I'm going to do now is basically set these and offset these foundations a little bit, just enough to where I can get that double reversed walled, so I can flip the wall where the exterior of the wall is on both sides. I'm going to do this for the entire build, which is a pain. For those of you who don't want to do that, that's fine too. I just wanted the texture on both sides. I think it does look better for like a cleaner build. But if you're doing a scrappy build, but you just wanted underpinnings, again, I think that was like 10 minutes ago. So the rest of us that want to do this clean build, yeah, it is a pain. But it can be done. It just takes a little bit of patience and practice, right? So if you notice, I'm kind of going to the other side of the build now, and I'm going to add my walls. And then this is that moment when I realized, you know what? I don't want this thing to be a box. As you'll see later, I'm going to put like a wall feature in the front that I think is going to come out super cool. So I'm going to leave that front part hollow for now and not even add a wall there. And if you notice, I'm able to get my foundations out of place pretty easily because I keep them as doorways for now. It makes things a lot easier. You don't want to like start changing them into regular walls until you're like all said and done with this, because you'll just end up reverting them back to doorways again. Also, be very careful when you're removing your foundations that you don't accidentally remove a roof, because if you do that, you're kind of having to backtrack, and it's going to be a huge pain. All right, so for the next part here, what I'm doing, I wasn't able to get my foundations exactly where I want on the other side. So if you ever find that you can't get a foundation in place over on the other side and you're like, oh wow, I can't double wall over there, what you can do is you can use a series of ladders like you saw right there. And I'm adding my floors. See, I couldn't get my walls or my foundations to the other side because I was being stupid and I didn't want to remove those foundations or the underpinnings. So what I'm doing here instead, because I wanted to kind of do it work smarter or dumber and not harder, I don't know which one, was I used upper floors to sneak in these other side of these walls over here. So either way works. You can use those in tight spaces, get your stairs out, use a series of stairs in place, floors down until you can get your floors or your walls where you want them to be. Now, as I said before, I want to put like this cool wall feature in the beginning of my build, like, towards the front. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset the foundations. Obviously, you just saw that again. And notice I have this doorway. I have it kind of flipped out here. What I'm going to do is I'm basically going to use my best judgment, and I'm going to move these foundations around so that way I can do like a series of basically quarter length, what a quarter length catwalk would do, I'm doing with foundations. And I'm just going to go ahead and double wall, double reverse wall all these walls in the front here, because I really think that's going to add a nice texture to the build, and it's going to make it to where it doesn't just seem like a box. There we go. Getting the foundations in place sometimes can be tricky, especially when there's other foundations and walls trying to snap to it. But yeah, so now I've got that part done, and I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm going to do it with the other side. Notice I'm dragging it back a little bit more. And I have that other foundation over there in place just kind of as a guide in case I go completely off off course. I can always start over by using that other foundation that I left in place as kind of like my placeholder. So, okay, so I start the puzzle from the beginning, no problem. It's not a permadeath. And yeah, so now I have that part double walled, and then I'm just going to do like 3 or 4 more in the middle. So that way it'll look like it's kind of glassed in a little bit. And I'm not using a ton of windows here. But I will do something cool with the windows because, I feel like, this build is going to need a lot of texture in order for it to stand out for it being base game items only. But yeah, all I'm really going to do from this point is I'm just going to move these foundations around and just keep being really careful and move them from side to side. Notice I'm using the bottom of my screen, that little toolbar over there, to make sure that it's kind of lined up with the foundation, so I'm not actually dragging it diagonally. Again, that's why I have the other foundation in place too. So if it does drag diagonally, then I know that I've kind of screwed up here a little bit. That last wall that I had placed, it just wasn't close enough for my liking, because I wanted it to really look like an Oreo cookie, right? Like all of the lines in the middle are going to be about the same width, the little white lines. I end up changing those walls later, but for now, since I'm using these walls consistently, this is my best way to measure if I'm being successful. But as you see here, I did kind of the same trick over and over again to get these walls to be in perfect place. And I did 4. I did 3 in the middle. Sorry, can't count. And that gave me 5 walls total. And I think that's going to add a really nice texture. The other thing I realized too is I don't want my front door to be in the same place. So I'm going to do a similar thing over here too. And then I'm going to add, so my front door is going to be like kind of like an alcove going in. Again, I'm thinking about, oh man, this whole thing's going to look like a box. Now it's not going to look so much like a box. And then again, as you've seen a bunch of times already, I'm just adding uh, I'm just adding foundations and moving things around in a way that I can get my walls into place by double walling them. Notice that one didn't work. It was too far away. You know, somebody not too long ago was like, "Wow, you know, it's so much. You make it look so easy." You know why I make it look easy? It's because of I'm better than building. I'm a better editor of my videos than I am of actually building them. So you know, I sometimes will try and purposely leave in some mistakes so you guys don't think that I'm God's gift at this game, because that's definitely not the truth. I'm not the end all be all answer to building in Fallout. That's for sure. I think I'm pretty good, but I'm not. Yeah, so I make a ton of mistakes, and through those mistakes, hopefully you'll learn something and be better than I am. So yep, I feel like I can get that wall a little bit closer, and notice it was still flipped. So I've got to get my foundations to be placed just a little bit off. And once I do that, then I'll have that last wall in place there. Now, the real pain in the neck will be coming up soon, too. We still haven't double walled the side walls there. Notice those ones are still that interior wall plaster white looking. We're going to fix that, too. And that's going to take another little trick to do. But it's actually pretty easy. I stumbled on it. I didn't know it previously before this. So this is that trick. So I wasn't able to place another wall here because those walls were too close. Believe it or not, these metal walls are actually pretty friendly with trying to clip in another wall. So I'm going to destroy these as metal walls, because I tried to destroy them as the other walls, like the wood walls and also those red brick walls. They wouldn't work, but that allowed me to snap them in no problem. So now I have reverse double walled all the way around the perimeter. I just got to do these inside walls. But since we just learned that little bit of knowledge, I know that I can do that there too. But also, I'm going to work on making my my bathroom and my rooms a little bit. The bedroom's pretty much already made, to be perfectly honest, because that's going to be done through through that mural wall. But now I just want to make sure my bathrooms are also done this way with the same technique. Yeah. When they keep trying to, do the regular double wall, that's when you know that like your foundations are a little bit not close, not far enough away, or you haven't positioned them correctly. I will be the first to admit that this is a little bit tedious to do. Um, but again, if you don't have wallpaper and you're like, man, I'm tired of looking at the interior of like the other side of these walls. This is the only way you can really do it and have that wallpaper effect, or at least have the not look like an empty wall or a hollow wall or something like that. All right, so hopefully we've learned a lot so far. We're going to learn a little bit more here. If you notice, I'm doing that ladder trick again because I couldn't squeeze my foundations through. And again, I was either being really smart or really lazy. I can't tell which one. But I'm going to add my double wall there, or I'm going to attempt to. And it looks like it went through. No problem. That's great. But sometimes they are going to be a little trickier than others. So in order to combat that, we will have to probably turn some of the walls into that metal wall. And then once you turn them into the metal wall, you'll be able to destroy them. I'll show you right here. See how these are destroyed metal walls? That's how I got them in. They wouldn't have gone in otherwise. But I did get them around the entire perimeter here. I promise you, here very shortly, we're going to be done looking at me just scooting foundations around gingerly. We're almost done with that part of the process, which I'm sure you guys will be relieved with. And we can move on to some of the other cool ideas that I did with this build. Just doing my last and the entranceway to my bathroom. The other thing too, while you still have a foundation under that doorway, it's a really smart move to put your doorway there because your tables probably will not be the exact height that they need to be in order to place a door. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a toilet. So that's another complaint I get from people, and it's a very fair complaint that yeah, we get a busted toilet and a busted sink. That's all we get, or busted bathtub, excuse me. That's all we get. That's why we can't build clean, because we don't have Atom Shop items. Okay, fair enough. So let's get a little creative here. So these podiums come from the Atlantic City, which you can get in game, and same with that pillar you just saw. Now the pillar, nobody really uses it because the the little dolphins and stuff on there don't exactly fit everybody's build unless you're doing a nautical theme build, right? But that doesn't mean we can't get creative with it. So I'm merging these podiums inside of each other to be like kind of like 1.5 wide. I probably could have gone a little bit less than 1.5 wide, but you can always make adjustments to this too to suit your needs. So for me, that's going to be the tank of my toilet. Now, hindsight being 2020, I also realized that the bowl of the toilet could have been the alien stash box. Actually makes a really great bowl of a toilet, but again, hindsight 2020. So we used the pillar, the aquarium pillar, to make that. Okay. So to do that, what I'm doing is I'm getting these tables to be a certain height, and it's going to take some playing with to make this happen. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap this pillar through the roofs, because again, we can snap things through destroyed things. It's going to take some adjusting to get it in the right spot. I put something on the wall up there. I put the BOS medallion on there as like my center point. See that BOS medallion? Once I know that I'm right front and center of that thing, I know that I have it in the right position. Yeah, it's a little off. But as you see, I kind of have my toilet. That's the idea of the toilet. I still have to move it around. So I went up there, I destroyed those walls again, and then I moved the podium, or I'm sorry, the post around, or whatever, pillar, so that way it's a little bit more front and center. So that's a little bit more like a toilet. And then the cool thing about these pillars is I can just remove the one it was attached to down there, and the other one's going to stay in place. Nobody's ever going to see the underside of that pillar. They're only going to see the very top of it. When people come and check out this camp, that's usually the first thing they ask. Oh, what did you use for the seat? I bet it was an Atom Shop item, cheater. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Quit being salty. It was something from it's the aquarium. And then they go into build mode and they're like, oh, you suck anyway. So the next thing we're going to do is combat the bathtub thing, right? So I put a rug down on the ground. This is going to actually sit below the where the roofs are destroyed. And then I was able to place a bunch of podiums lined up on that. And then as you see, I'm actually even placing tables down on the roofs now. Where on that same rug. And these are going to be my white tiles in my shower. So because I use the rug, they're all going to be the same height. They're not going to follow like the imperfections in the ground. And by doing this, I'm creating essentially a tub or a shower. I think this is kind of like a dual purpose because it could also be a shower because of the height level of it. But I kind of designed it to be a shower, but it could have been a tub too. And then, yes, I'm going to use the curtains. These curtains are in-game curtains. They're the tattered ones. But because everything around it is clean, it still will look okay. Honestly, it's my best only option. And I do like using these curtains, or any curtains, usually the clean ones, obviously. But I still think it came out good because everything else in this bathroom is clean. And I do add a little bit of fun scrappiness to it to kind of give it a shabby chic, but I still feel this build is very clean, especially given the floors and most of the decor in here. But yeah, now that I have those in place, that is my shower. I still need a shower head, and I'm going to use the same shower head technique here that you'll see in a minute. I use that also to do my sinks. So again, going back to complaints here, oh, we don't have a sink. You are right, you do not. So you must make one. So we have a conduit right here. That's going to be the shower head. I'm going to destroy those walls after I turn them into like wood walls, so that way I can get through them easier. I'll repair that thing. And that's the height that I wanted it on. I used those tables for that height. You could have used anything to make that height. So if you notice, I really did my best to not have any Atom Shop items even in the building process of this, even with the height of making something. But if you see one and I flip through it, I apologize. Like, I have like a gazillion Atom Shop items because I decided that I was going to drink the Kool-Aid and give Bethesda all my money. Real quick, I want to also show you as we start on roofs, you want to oftentimes try and place them in as the like corner piece roof and then flatten them, because otherwise it's going to be hard to get them to place correctly because of the way they're walled. That's the initial build. Now that we're starting on the roofs, one key thing is try and have another wall in place before, like say you're going 3 walls high. Don't go like double walling all of your walls before you get there. Because if you try and place roofs on these double walls, they're a real pain in the butt to do. So I have one half wall placed up that height, right? So the next thing that I'm going to use that one half wall to do all of my roofs pretty much. But if you notice, there's a gap there. And I don't want that wall to poke through that roof. So now we're going to do double roofs. Now you're like, Moonlight, we can't do double roofs because we don't have the roofs to do it, because we're not Atom Shop, junkies like you are. Cool. I'm going to show you how you can do it anyway. So look, I added that roof there after removing the other roof. Now look, now they don't meet. Oh darn, they don't meet. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Okay, we're going to destroy that roof like so. Oop, destroyed one too many roofs. And then, once that roof's destroyed, I can then snap another one here. So, by double roofing this, I not only keep that roof line intact up top, but then I also meet the wall with the roof as well. And then I can just do that all the way across the entirety of my roofs there. And then just destroy them and add the other ones. So if you do need a little bit more thickness on your roof, like I do, because I could have put that roof on flat, the first one, I put it on as an angle so that way the wall wouldn't poke through. So if you ever do need to do double roofs, or maybe you just like the texture of a different roof, you can still do it as long as you're doing it at an angle. It makes it a lot, I should say, it makes it a lot easier if you're doing it at an angle. You can do it the other way too, just by turning the flat roof into a corner roof. But now all my roofs are good to go there. Now next you're going to see here in a minute, I'm going to put in my final walls here, the ones that I just placed roofs for, and you notice that right here, the wall doesn't meet the roof. That's going to be a problem. Oh no, Moonlight, I'm going to have to scrap my whole build. You suck. Wrong. So first we're going to get these the double walls to be in place, or at least one of the walls to be in place, right? So if you notice I'm getting my walls there, good to go. All right. But Moon, you still aren't meeting the other wall. Yes, I know. What we're going to do with that is I want to get these walls in place first. Now that I know that I'm going to be able to get that other roof in place, and the reason I'm going to get these other walls like where they need to be is because I'm going to use a roof to merge into that roof to kind of span that little bit of gap. So I'm going to destroy those walls to get the last set of walls there in place. See? Now those will place. But before I place that second one, notice, I didn't double wall that one yet, because I'm going to destroy this roof. Like so. And then I'm going to add another roof here. It can be a little tricky to do. So you might even have to destroy another couple of roofs around you. Because usually when you can't place it, it's because the roofs don't play nice with each other unless they're broken. So then now I can place it no problem. Unless of course I place it going the wrong way. So I've got to twist that around a little bit. So now look, and yeah, they actually work. I was able to bridge that gap with the roofs. And because it's directly over the entrance, it's not going to really make a difference one way or the other. And I'm going to wall around it too. So you're not going to really be able to notice any differences on that roof. So first I'm going to put that wall in, and then I'm putting this wall in over here as well, above it. And I'm also going to add my walls here, but I'm not going to do them with the half walls. I'm going to do them with the full walls. So that little front, like, extra piece, I don't even know what to call it. The feature wall, I guess I'm going to call it, or feature walls. What I'm going to do is I'm going to destroy the roofs that are in the way of adding those walls, because I still need the inside to be roofed in. And it'll actually give a cool effect anyway when this is all said and done, even with those roofs clipping through. Is all I got to do now is I'm just going to add those walls, but first I want to get a roof on. This is just in case I'm not able to get a roof on later because of all the walls getting in the way. It turns out I was able to, but for you, I would be cautious just because you don't want to get all the way to this point and then not be able to put a roof up there. So just before you build all your walls, just try and make sure you can put a roof there first, and then after that, you can put your walls up, and then if you're able to put the roof back or like move it around and it'll snap in place, then good to go. And when you're doing that, be really like decisive on like which roof you want to keep, because this is how I figured that out, that you could put the roof back even with the walls in place in that particular moment, is because I did all that and I realized that's not the roof that I wanted, because I changed my mind. All right. So I think that's the roof I'm going to go with, at least for now, and then I'm going to change my mind here moments later. And then all we have to do, the cool thing about like the double wall technique that I'm using for this is that you don't have to have them doorways, because they're just so perfectly spaced to where you don't have to like turn them into doorways like you would when you do a normal double wall. So I'll be able to just slap those walls into place. If you ever have problems snapping the walls in place, that means something else is intersecting with it. Try changing to another wall type, destroying everything that's around it, and then you should have no problems. Alright, so that being the roof that I think I'm going to go with for now. Now we're going to do those double walls. If you've noticed this video, I've gone a little bit slower. I have had some comments recently about videos that have gone too fast, so hopefully this helps. Some of my tutorials coming up are going to be faster, but that's because I I record a lot of things in advance, and then I just place out whatever like my mood is that day for that Sunday that I usually place out my videos. So sometimes I'm like, I'm feeling an Under the Bridge camp. I'll release that today. This time it was, I feel like releasing this camp. So this one, is going a little bit slower than some of my others. Like I was saying before, if you get stuck where you're not able to place a wall, just try turning, those walls into some other type of wall and destroying them. And then oftentimes you'll be able to get a wall in place, like so. It can be a little bit finicky. If you had the Blue Ridge set, it would be super easy, or even the Corroded Wall set, it'd be super easy. The Blue Ridge set and the Corroded Wall set are the first two sets I highly recommend you get if you decide to spend money on this game. And this is how the exterior turned out so far. So now what we want to do is I want to add a railing, and I want it to be sank in because like this is going to be a really custom build, right? So while I still have those walls out of place, the ones that are underground, I'm putting these things on the roofs, I'm destroying the roofs, and I'm also destroying the fences themselves. Just like with anything else, once they're destroyed, you can snap things through them. So once I get those in place, now I put my floors back, and then look, I can snap them through, and now I'm going to have a custom lowered looking fence around the perimeter of my camp. Something else I could have done too, with this part, because there was a gap with the tables going all the way around. I used roofs, and I used roofs because they were more flexible of an option. And in order to put them in place, I had to destroy all the other roofs. But around the perimeter, you're going to see a little bit of roof sticking out. That was to cover it up, the perimeter where there was a gap between the table and the underpinning. But yeah, I could have used foundations here too. I decided to use roofs because the foundations were easy to do if I wanted to show you that, because I could just snap those through. But I wanted to show you the roofs as like another option. I think the foundations would have looked slightly better. So now that I have my underpinnings in place, and I believe everything in my structure is in place, I can just go ahead and remove these floors again. And at this point is when I'm actually turning my underpinnings into walls, because I really don't feel like I'm going to need to put them back. The structure is officially in place. There's nothing else I could possibly change on it unless I find a mistake, in which case I'm going to use some potted plants to cover up a mistake at that point, because this was a lot of work, right? So I'm gonna remove everything but that last set of stairs. The last set of stairs is the last thing I'm gonna do. Now we're gonna do power. So since we have an underground area, we can just put some conduits up here. Again, I really hate doing conduits because you should just go buy the generator if you have the funds to do it. But if you don't want to show your power, because usually the power running of the lines and stuff, that all looks hideous. So, especially for a clean build, there are applications where it doesn't look hideous. Don't get me wrong, or it's supposed to look hideous, or cute, like ugly cute, like a pug. Uh, but this is not that case. So I ran a bunch of conduits underground, and they're attached to to those roofs, the roof platforms up there. And I'm just running lines, and then that table that's supporting the mural is where I set the generator, and I did that intentionally because when I'm all said and done here, another benefit of using the roofs underground is because you'll be able to remove all of the roofs except for the ones you don't want to remove. Unlike the floors where you have to remove them all. But this was before we got that generator, this was the old school way that we all had power. I mean, one of a couple of ways that we did it. This was the most common way to hide power underground. Was this technique? I think I've got it slapped on an old tutorial somewhere. So if you really want to look up that, you can. Um, so now, if you notice, the generator is on that table, and that table is only going to be held up by one roof. That is the roof. When you pick up the roof and it turns red, like the items on it turns red, those are the items that are anchoring it. So even though it looks like it should be falling into the earth right now, or to the nether world, or wherever that leads you, it's actually being supported by that one roof. So now I can just remove all of the roofs that were touching it. And my power will stay in place, my mural will stay in place, everything will stay in place. Be very careful, because at this point, this is for me, this would be the point of no return, right? Now, this is for my next trick. I put one of the conduits on top of one of the little pipe conduits, so that way I can place it above ground. When you move it once slightly after you've connected the power line, and then you move it again, this wire is going to drag through wherever you want. Why I did this is because I want to put lighting in the top of my feature wall hot mess that I made. So I'm going to put power there, like so. And I'm going to destroy a wall, and I'm going to put power up there. like so. And that way it's hidden up there and I still get power up there. Now, it's going to say not snapping. It's going to turn red, but notice it flickers green. I just spam my attach button, which for me on this, it's the triangle, until I get it to snap green and glitch into place. That way I can get power up there. And you won't see any of the wires really, or the conduits. And since we're here on this journey, we're going to go ahead and put the lighting inside the walls, so that way they're hidden. I really like the way the asylum lights look, in terms of like the lighting that they produce, because it's really focused down rather than like a floodlight. So I use these often, even in builds that aren't, no Atom Shop builds, because this is the only one, and I do use them a lot. So notice, like, I was able to hide them in the walls pretty well, and it gave a really nice beam of light down, without flooding it. And if you ever run into a scenario like in this, I use this angle wall here. It wasn't my first choice, but I used the angle wall there because it was going to pop through the roof as a regular wall. Just a little bit. The brick would have. And now I have absolutely completed all of the powering and the structure of my build. So now I'm going to remove the last of the roofs. This is where I say goodbye to my generator down here, which I will know will be here in my heart, but it will no longer be visible, and I will never come down here again. So now I'm standing on the last roof, and everything is cleaned up except for that one last piece. And this is how the exterior came out. I'm going to show you a couple more tricks too. And then we'll just take a look at how everything kind of turned out. Hopefully you watched the video last week. Actually, I'm pretty sure you didn't, because I didn't get a lot of views on that one. That's okay. These Mothman lanterns are fantastic. If you do not have the miniature holiday lamppost, which is one of my favorite items in this entire game, these are a great second place. They actually shine a little brighter, which can be good or bad depending on the circumstance, but they also only cost one camp budget item, and they do not require power. So they are a great alternative for those of you who are looking to add accent lighting like this in these planners, right? So now I can put them against the wall, and now that's going to make that wall pop a little bit. And I put them on the ends there, so that way I can kind of get, on both sides. I could have been cheap and put one in the middle. If I had done like a lot of them in like a row, that's probably what I would have done. But yeah. And you can do this in so many things. And yeah, they do stick out of the bottom just slightly, but like nobody's going to notice it, I promise. If they do, then they're OCD like me, and that's like 1 in 100. Another place I like to put them too, just like with the miniature holiday lights, is inside of the planters, especially these concrete ones like this. They hide them very well. I'm all about accent lighting. I don't use a ton of like actual light budget when I'm doing my builds, because I try and use either these or the miniature holiday lampposts. But yeah, if you see right there, a little bit of accent lighting. It's not flooding my build at all. Looks great on those beautiful wood tables that we did. And yeah, that's how that came out. I think that looked really good with that accent lighting. Now I'm going to add a little bit more inside. I actually used one as a decor piece. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm running out of budget. I'll use one as a decor piece, and it actually turned out looking okay. But for this, what I'm going to do is I took the TV aquarium and I put it backwards, and I put a radio on top of it, make it look like it's part of like a speaker. Because the backside kind of looks like a speaker, and I lit that up. And those all, like those little planters in there and all of that stuff, that all has those Mothman lights in it to give it that really nice accent look. So now we're going to create a sink. So inside of that sink is one of those like death claw hands. You can get those in games. They're like in a jar. There's a couple of like the in the jar things you can get in a game. And what I'm doing is I'm merging that down into one of those like coffee tables, merging that down into a stove. And then when I get the right height, I'm going to merge that down into a table. I also need to make sure it's lined up correctly too, because right now it needs a little bit more love. See if you notice. And because I'm wedging it between this refrigerator that I kind of made with just a regular milk dispenser and a couple of jukeboxes to make it look clean. Yeah. Looks pretty good. We're able to get that in there. You're not going to see the back of it. And then once that's done, that looks like a cleaner refrigerator than what they gave us. And now we have kitchen with counters and cabinets. And I think this came out looking pretty good overall. A lot of accent lighting, a lot of custom work. Um, it still has like a tiny bit of shabby chic to it, like with these. But where I couldn't really do anything, I made it look more intentional. Look at that. That's the sheep herd rack thing that you get in game as well. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you found some tricks and ideas that you can use for those of you who do not have Atom Shop items or scoreboard items. Thank you so much for watching. Y'all stay blessed and stay safe out there.